Hello, my name is Sean Eubank and I'm the pastor at St. Thomas Lutheran Church. I'm sitting here with three wonderful gentlemen from our community and I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Joe Porcerelli, Chief of Police.
Hi, I'm Bill Ice. I'm Superintendent of Grosse-Ile Schools.
Hi, I'm Detective Ken Pellin of the Grosse-Ile Township Police Department, and today we're going to talk about some serious issues that affect our youth and the community in whole.
While living in a good community, there's always those issues that come up. And one that we want to talk about today is parents hosting parties where alcohol is present and provided for the kids who are there. Specifically here we're talking about high school age kids, but it can be those a little bit older, a little bit younger than that.
Parents will allow kids to have their friends over. Alcohol is sometimes provided by those parents or it's snuck into the house by the kids.
What are the consequences that start to roll out from that?
Well, we focus on two different types of laws. First, we have our local ordinances that are specific to Grosse-Ile Township, and then we have state laws. The consequences are relatively simple. If you allow a kid, somebody under 21, to possess or consume alcohol on your property, it's a misdemeanor. Under state law, it's a 30-day offense with a $1,000 fine. Our local ordinance is 90 days, punishable by up to $500. So we check to make sure the kids are safe, and if that's the case, but we do find that there's been somebody that's been possessing or consuming alcohol by a minor, then we have to look at those two misdemeanors and try to take enforcement action.
Now, I'm a parent, and I've heard other parents say, look, I'd rather have my kid drinking where I know where they are and I can keep them safe. I can know they're in the basement, I can hide the car keys, I can make sure that the situation's completely under control. And Joe, I just want to ask you, why is that a bad thing? What goes wrong there?
In a perfect world, that might be okay, but as you know, when things go awry with drinking, they really go awry. We're talking about injury, we're talking about death, we're talking about other criminal acts that occur. There's assaults that occur after drinking. And I don't believe that the parents can have 100% total control of any kind of party like that. So that's why we like to say we would rather educate than enforce.
Allowing kids to consume and they take the keys from them, well, they're trying to be responsible about an irresponsible act. Because if you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, sometimes 50 or 60 kids in your home, not all of those children's parents are allowing their kids to drink. So you don't even have parental consent in most of these cases. But then what typically happens is maybe the parents become overwhelmed with the number of kids that they have. The kids start to become rowdy. They start to become a little bit crazy, a little bit immature. They start to take chances. They start the risk-taking is increased. Next thing you know, the parents can't control the kids. What's the parents' next step? Well, I mean, what's in their plan? They've taken away the keys, but now they have rowdy kids. Are they going to call the police and put themselves at risk criminally and liably for serving these minors? Is that the next step? Well, probably not. What we've seen is the parents let the kids leave without their vehicles, and now they're out in the community walking down our streets, getting lost in the woods, and what have you. It puts them in a bad situation. It's never a good thing to allow kids to drink alcohol, period.
You know, you might think that, hey, the parents are being cool and they allow something to happen. I know of one situation in another state that I worked as a pastor, and a parent was hosting a party and all the kids had agreed, we're not going to leave, we're not going to do anything. Well, one kid had had just a little bit of beer, not much at all, and he realized, darn it, I left my iPod at home. And so instead of securing permission or doing something else, he thought, you know what, I can get out of this house without the parents noticing that it happened, and I'll get my keys. I'm just going to take the car, and I'm going to go get my iPod, and I'll be right back, and they'll never even know that I left. Well, while going out, was the alcohol a factor or not? Who knows? But he managed to drive his car into a ditch. Luckily, he wasn't injured. Luckily, nothing horrible happened in that car accident beyond just having to fix up the car. But the police officers that had to come and help noticed the alcohol on the breath. And so right there they have to ask, where are you coming from? He, of course, directed them back to the house where they were. The officers show up there. Lo and behold, you got a whole bunch of underage kids with alcohol present, with the parents' full knowledge and everything else. The parents had to go off to the police station to be locked up for the evening. As that happened, it was on a Friday. In order to be released, they had to see a judge, which meant in that state they had to wait till Monday morning to be able to see a judge. In the meantime, there were other younger children that those parents were responsible for. They were the parents. And these much younger kids, over that weekend, had to go to the foster care system in order to be placed for safekeeping for the weekend, which meant that when the parents finally got out on Monday, I mean, it was a half hour probably to see the judge, get out, and, then have a court date set and do all that. Now they're on their own. But now they had to approach the foster care system to get their kids back. And can you imagine being a parent who, it is now on your record, I provided alcohol to underage children in my home, not just my children, but other people's children, and then trying to convince the state, I'm a good parent, give me my kids right back. And then the other fallout that happened, the dad had no idea that at his job, that there was what you could call a morals clause, and simply being arrested for providing alcohol to underage children put him into a category like he's a drug dealer or something. He got fired. The next day, Tuesday, when he showed up for work, he was escorted to the door with his belongings in a box and fired from his job. And it was, the consequences were just horrifying how far it went. Ken, a police report has now been made and an infraction has happened and a student has been arrested or charged with possession of alcohol or actually being intoxicated. What happens to that individual then? How does this proceed?
Well, one of the procedures that we must follow is a state law that requires reporting to the school district. So if a student or a staff member is involved in an incident, we have to complete a county form and send it over to the administration office of the school district. And Bill might be able to elaborate a little bit more on what the school district does with that information.
Well, a couple of things, Ken. Number one, if they're an athlete, we have a policy that says you need to be alcohol-free 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that if that's violated, and it doesn't matter where you are, certainly there's a stair-step set of procedures or consequences that take place leading up to suspension. But certainly immediate suspension from that athletic activity. And we want our kids to be involved with athletics. We've got over 80% of our kids that are involved with athletics. And secondly, if a student were to go from one of these parties to any kind of a school activity in this condition, we're required to notify the police, and then suspensions take place after that. So really, two different kinds of things can happen here.
And that's one of the good things about the law, is it's not just the police department reporting to the school district, it requires the school district to report to the police department. So if we miss somebody at a house party that's drinking, they show up at a football game, a dance, or any other type of function, the school has to report it to us immediately. An officer responds to that event, and then they have to take enforcement action.
All three of you are in positions where, unfortunately, when rules get broken, you're the ones on the front lines that have to then enforce those rules. But what would you rather see happen?
Our main concern here is to educate. And with education, I think that we'll stop a lot of the problems that arise from this type of situation.
We would prefer no violations. We would prefer that our underage kids are not consuming alcohol and putting themselves in danger. We don't want to see anything happen to our youth. We don't want sexual assaults. We don't want physical assaults. We don't want property damaged or car crashes or anything else occurring. We would much prefer to put out the message that education is more important. You know, being on a sports team is more important. Being healthy is more important. That's what we want to see. We don't want to write tickets. That's the downside to law enforcement, actually.
Sean, one could argue today that it might be more difficult to keep kids safe, teenagers safe today, than at any other time in our country's history. There are more things out there that can be damaging to kids, that they need to be aware of, that all of us need to be aware of, that can hurt them. Our curriculum in school surrounds the idea of students making healthy decisions. What is a healthy decision for you? What's going to be in your best interest today and in the future? The issue with alcohol is we know a lot about what happens physiologically, and for teenagers who take in alcohol, it affects their brains differently than it would an adult. These are brains and bodies that are growing and developing, and alcohol does not work well with that process. And so it's not just things that can happen immediately, as Ken was talking about, but brains can be affected long term. The adult's ability to control impulses, to speak, memory ability, et cetera, and different kinds of brain function can be affected long term by kids taking in alcohol during these formative years. So aside from just the immediate issues, you have the long term that my guess is many young people don't know about. A parent endorsing or encouraging or providing a place where kids can drink is in fact breaking the law. We're sending kids the message that it's okay to break the law. Mm-hmm. It's okay to skirt the rules. When did Lance Armstrong first learn that it was okay to break the rules? When did A-Rod first decide that it was okay to break the rules? And so this is a pattern of behavior. If we're going to break the rules here, are we going to break the rules somewhere else in another way, later on in life?
Some parents say to us even, and I get that, I did it when I was young, and look how I turned out, I'm fine. But the point is that it is a law. We must abide by laws. If you believe this law is fine and another law isn't, which one are you going to pick and choose to teach our children? And one thing I do have to say is our children, they're our greatest resource that we have. There's nothing more important than teaching our children how to be good parents, how to be good citizens, how to do what's right in life. And I think this just goes in that whole area, that when you teach them that alcohol is somewhat okay, it either is or isn't. But the old adage is, well, you can die for your country at 18 years of age, but you can't have a beer. There's another way to debate that. I mean, this isn't the forum to debate that in, because it is illegal to drink if you're under 21 years of age. And I think that's an important message to teach the kids, because it's about character. It's about how your children are going to grow up to be good adults and teach their children. And I think that's very important.
As a parent that might be categorized as a veteran parent, my own kids are grown now, and I think back to how they learn and what they learned, and I believe that our kids learn a lot more from us as parents by watching us than they do by listening to us. How we live and what we do are the things that they remember, and I think that they emulate.
If I'm a parent and I find out from my kid that something's going on that's involving alcohol, obviously I'm going to ask my child to not participate and to make a better decision that. But is there another step that you want me to take?
What I want you to do first as a parent is contact Joey's parent to try and head it off at the pass that way, as opposed to saying, hey, my daughter's going to Joey's house, I want to let the police know that there's going to be alcohol there. Because what can happen between the time possibly we get there and you tell us, somebody could already die from alcohol poisoning. we would like you to call the parent first. It's just kind of putting them on notice also. Maybe what's going around school, maybe the kids have something planned that the parent didn't know about, and the parent thought it was just going to be a very reasonable party. So that is first. Now, if you don't feel like calling the parent, you can always call us. We could try to help out, but we would rather that you call the parent and put them on notice, at least to what's going on, because they may not even know it. So it's always best to contact the parent of the house first, or if you ever have any questions of a party that your daughter's going to, are the parents going to be home? Now with that, you're assuming when the parents are going to be home that everything will be fine. That's why we're talking to parents now, because when they're going to be home, we are asking them to make sure everything is fine and take that step instead of staying upstairs in the bedroom the whole night, to actually take that step to go out there and, you know, you got to check on the kids in the basement every now and then. You got to check on the kids. That's the way it goes. I mean, that's how to keep kids safe. We believe that the best advice we could give you right now is that you have to know your children, your children's friends, your children's friends' parents.
So what you're basically saying is be a community, know each other, talk to each other, be in relationship with each other as parents.
You got to get involved. You can't just shut your eyes.
There's a state law that allows a parent or somebody that has a minor with them that's suffering from alcohol poisoning or may need medical attention, that if they call for help, if they request a police or an ambulance to respond, they cannot be prosecuted for underage drinking. What we want to encourage is our youth, if themselves or a friend that they're with is suffering some side effects of alcohol poisoning, they're going to be incapacitated or they need medical help, they're free to call us. Anybody who calls for help cannot be prosecuted for underage drinking. That goes to the person that's been drinking and the person that is calling for help. So we don't want any tragedies. And so the law allows now for us to not take enforcement action in those circumstances.
And if I could add to this, the reason why the legislature, they've almost had no choice but to pass this certain type of law, because across the country there is just too many deaths of underage kids from drinking, from alcohol poisoning. So they came up with this law because kids were afraid to call the police or fire department for help because they knew they were going to get in trouble. But unfortunately, when they didn't call, numerous kids have passed away from this.
Our goal is simple. Teach our youth to make good decisions. It's about alcohol. It's about choosing the proper friends. It's about helping your neighbors. It's about making our community better. Groseal is fantastic. It's a wonderful place to live, but we can be better. There's no doubt about it, and I believe that if we work with the schools, we work with the churches, it goes to the old adage, it takes a community or a village to raise a child, and I truly believe that.
A wise older parent once said to me, there were no perfect parents. And I know as a parent, I made my share of mistakes. We all do. I think it's important that we as parents, as people who work with young people, are reflective about what we're doing, our processes and practices. What effects are these things having on the young people? And the idea, again, is that we all need to work together to keep them healthy, keep them safe, and to help them make good decisions now and in the future.
I would just like the parents to understand that I'm not here to try and teach you how to raise your children or even get into your business about raising your children. But my job is to make sure that the people are safe on Groseal. And I really believe in my heart that if we all work together on not only underage drinking, but parties that have allowed underage drinking, that we'll be one step closer to what we're supposed to be doing with our children.
And I'm so thankful to live in a community like this where our the leaders of our school system, the leaders in our public safety department, the police department, where everybody tries to work together because we all have the same goals in mind. We want our children to grow up in a community that is safe. We want them to be able to make wise decisions. And we want all of our parents, too, to be able to make wise decisions along with their children. And then we want to see our children grow up to be adults who are people of character and of substance.